The story I'm about to tell you is very personal, and it is just my story. My story does not necessarily reflect every individual who is in a similar boat to me. When I was in the 4th grade, I got what I thought at the time was the worst news of my life. And that news was that I had ADHD. And as soon as I heard that, and as soon as it was explained to me, I thought that was the worst news I had gotten. Because up until that point, I had been led to believe that if you had some kind of mental disability, you were different. And that you were supposed to be put in this box. And that you were going to be coddled for the rest of your life, and you wouldn't get to experience what society deems normal. And my mom stopped me. She said that, she told me something that's resonated with me my entire life, and that was, you are not going to let this disability, well rather, you're not going to be able to use this disability as an excuse not to do anything. Not to continue to be who you have been. And I was like, what do you mean? And she says, you've been fine up to this point, this year excluding. There's no reason that you can't continue to be okay. I'm not going to let you use this disability as an excuse not to continue to be smart, not to continue to be the bright, happy boy that you are. And that just stuck with me, because she didn't. She meant that. And I'll be honest, those first couple months of trying to find medication and the entire process of adapting were not easy. And I know it's not easy. But it got better. And and I'll be honest, while my mom was a huge help, and not everyone has a mom that will tell them that, it wasn't purely because of her that it got better. I had to have a positive outlook as well, and that helped a whole lot. So it can get better. I know that it's hard. I know that it might be hard, especially when it's a new thing, especially when you're diagnosed later in life with it like I was. But it can get better. And again, I do want to stress that this is my story. It is no way me trying to say that everyone's story is like mine. I know that there are some kids with major developmental issues and disabilities. I hate to use those words. And those are very real things. But I think that, I'm just saying this is my story, and I'm trying to provide my spin on this whole thing. So I found out that I had ADHD. I found a medication that worked, and my life got better. My life got so much better. I was able to focus more. I was able to be what society deemed to be normal. And I thought, I was like, great, I'm not going to be like those other kids who are, you know, probably told, you know, from the minute they're diagnosed that, you know, you know, you don't have to try as hard as other kids. And it wasn't until very recently that I learned that that it really wasn't the case. You know, that it's not fair to assume that, you know, just because someone is in that special needs class that they're, even though I was initially afraid of that, it's this annoying double standard is what I'm trying to say. I caught myself in a double standard, and I didn't even realize it until fairly recently. The more I keep thinking about it, the more that it becomes abundantly clear that society has this bullshit norm that if you don't conform to what's normal, if you have some kind of disability, some kind of mental disability, then you need to be put in this box and you need to be coddled for your entire life. And it also sets a dangerous precedent to kids that aren't in that group, that they're lesser. I thought that for a while, even when I was diagnosed, because I thought I got better, these kids aren't trying. And that really wasn't fair of me to assume. I think what needs to happen, I think, for, you know, kids to have experiences where they feel it gets better, is that I think they really shouldn't. I think for one, there needs to be, I think vetting needs to be more like serious, I think. And what I mean by that is, like, maybe not all of those kids have some kind of developmental issue that means that they need to be put in a giant box. Maybe instead of boxes we have, you know, groups, right? And this is all a metaphor. you know, instead of putting someone with ADHD in the same, you know, developmental cycle as someone who has something that's more serious, you know, maybe, I'm not sure. What I do know is that there are disabilities that are far worse than what I have, and my elementary school at the time wanted to just put me with those kids that were having issues, and my mom stepped in again and she said, why? He was perfectly fine up to this year. Why does it need to change? And like thinking back on it, that really opens my eyes that like there's a problem. There really is a problem here, that if a kid has that label, they're just put into a box and they're coddled. And again, maybe that coddling works for some kids, for some adults even, but it perpetuates this stereotype. Like, you know, it makes kids afraid to have these disabilities. And that's bullshit. I don't know, admittedly, I don't know what we need to do. But I know that if we start a conversation, that's something. I know that, you know, what needs to happen is this societal definition of what is normal needs to be shattered. That it's not fair that someone who has ADHD is roped in with a box, or roped into a box that, you know, with someone who's, you know, who has a more serious issue. And I'm not saying that to say that ADHD means you're better off. I'm saying that to mean that, you know, the more serious issues need more, you know, attention. And if you have this box, it makes it harder to give individuals the attention they need. There's this great picture that's the difference between equity and equality, of people standing on boxes. And everyone stands on the same box. They might not be able to see the baseball game over the fence. But if everyone gets exactly the amount of boxes they need, we can all watch that baseball game. So let's work together to destroy this stigma. Let's work together to make it so that just because you have any kind of mental disability, some developmental disability, whatever you want to call it, that you're put into this box, and it's automatically assumed that you're not going to conform to what society deems normal. Because the second we do that, the second it becomes a lot easier for kids with disabilities, at least ADHD, you know, to grow up in a society where they feel like, you know, they can do something. I felt like I could do something because I had people around me that told me I could. I had people around me that, you know, told me that this didn't make me any different. And I think that extending that courtesy on a societal basis is the best way to start. Thank you so much for watching. Please keep the comments constructive, and I hope that this opened your eyes to some degree, or at least, you know, helped you think. Bye.